going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. You know who it is by now, Jimothy. So ladies and gents, I thought I would share the list that I managed to top my most recent exploits at locals, which is time free for Raidraptors. Now what I am going to say, ladies and gents, is this is definitely a janky profile, mainly because I wasn't too sure what I was going to play at the event, and I ended up just picking up this and I had a few cards in the deck box which I just decided to throw into the deck with no real thought, but it actually kind of worked out, mainly because the nature of the way that the deck works makes it very variable and very strong. So without wasting any more time, I'm going to go through the cards, explain why certain things are in here for good reason and for bad reasons, and then yeah, we'll see how it goes. So starting us off, probably the most powerful card in the deck, definitely my favorite starter, which is Time Thief Regulator. Now, you can even tell that this was unprepared, mainly because I do have the ghosts from the past ultras somewhere, and I didn't even put them in. So I'm still running. I've got some random mixed commons and rares here, which is just crazy. But this is your starter. This is your life and soul. If you see this in combination with Time Thief Startup, it is just a beautiful feeling. Being able to go full combo without actually expending your normal summon is just fantastic. It special summons 2 from deck and just gets all of your plays going. So triple Time Thief Regulator, you do want to see that in your opening hand. Probably your next best important card is triple Time Thief Winder. Now Winder is a searcher, searches you any of your Time Thief cards. Depending on what you've got in hand, you can actually search for another starter, you can search for an extender in the form of startup. It's just a beautiful card, definitely something that you want to summon off your regulator or even start your plays with, basically. So triple Time Thief Winder can also special summon himself by detaching a material from an XYZ monster, which is definitely useful in this deck. So triple Winder. And then next we've got the double Time Thief Adjuster, as well as the singular Bezel Ship. Bezel Ship is just a beautiful extender. You do want to get this engraved, and Time Thief Adjuster is the one that allows you to do that. Typically, I used to go into my regulator and I'd summon my my Time Thief Adjuster and my Time Thief Winder off regulator, and then dump the Bezel Ship. And then already I've got literally a XYZ monster on board, as well as Bezel Ship engraved to be able to extend. So definitely a nice ratio right there. Next, for some of the Raidraptor stuff, we've got triple Raidraptor Strangulanius. This is just a beautiful extender. Can special summon itself if you've got a dark monster on board. If you've got an XYZ monster with a dark material, you can special summon a Raidraptor monster from your graveyard. You are locked into darks when you use this, and I believe at one time I drawed Soul Shade Force and I had this in hand. I used its effect to special summon. Then I went to use the Soul Shade Force and I was like, oh, I'm locked into dark, so no Cyber Dragon Infinity for me. But nevertheless, a superior extender, very powerful. Next up, for the rest of the Raidraptors cards, we've got one Raider's Wing, one Raidraptor Singing Lanius, and one Raidraptor Mimicry. Now Raider's Wing, I'm potentially going to bump up to 2. It is that strong. It's a bit like Bezel Ship and Winder. It can either play out from the graveyard or your hand by special summoning itself and detaching the material from an XYZ monster to be able to do so. It also prevents targeting for a monster that has this as a material, so it's very powerful. So you don't actually mind seeing this in your starting hand. Same with Singing Lanius, it can just special summon itself. The true brick of the deck is Mimicry Lanius. However, this in graveyard allows you to extend and allows you to fetch more from your deck. So you do want to summon this off your Y-Strix. So definitely a nice ratio right there. I probably wouldn't change these apart from the additional Raider's Wing. Next up, for a few extenders, we've got just some rank 4 Toolbox. Obviously, the Phantom Knight's boots is basically to get either your Fogblade or your Rank Up Magic launch, but Hat Tricker and Lunar Dark Spirit are just simple extenders, level 4 bodies that can get themselves onto the field. You do need to set up with them, hence why I'm only running them at 1 each. Also, we are running a bit of removal in the form of Gamma Seal. Obviously, Dragoon, I actually didn't see Dragoon, to be honest, but I did see a lot of Zeus, and this allowed me to out it a couple of times, as well as just tribute over other monsters. Yeah, definitely powerful. I did side it out a lot, to be honest. We also have the one Dino Wrestler Pancratops. I actually mained this just because I was scared of losing dice rolls and not being able to go second, because my hand trap lineup, which you'll see in a moment, is not the most extensive. So Pancratops just help me to break boards, pop back row, all that kind of good stuff. You definitely know about Pancratops. Next, for the hand traps, oh my gosh, this is where it's janky. So we got one Ghost Bell, one Ghost Ogre and one Effect Failure. No Ash Blossom, nothing like that. I just didn't have them, to be honest. Like I said, I wasn't too sure what I was playing, so this is just basically what I had in my deck. And it actually worked out. I seen them when I needed to see them, and I'm not even gonna lie, ladies and gents, Ghost Ogre is low-key underrated. Not because it doesn't negate, it's not as impactful as some of the other ones, but for the simple fact that it can stun you out of a turn, especially if you blow up a extra lit monster when I try to activate their effect, it can prove very, very useful. I had this dropped on me, to be honest, and it actually ended my turn, which was just absolutely crazy. So definitely something to keep an eye on, and I might actually start putting this into a few more of my rogue decks, but definitely a nice card. Next up, the next MVP, which is what you want to see in conjunction with your Winder, your Time Thief Regulator, is the side frame package. Being able to tribute your Regulator to get 2 from deck, only to be met by an Ash, to then get slapped by a Gamma, is just beautiful. And then you can go into Omega for another hand rip. Yeah, nothing needs to be said about that. You do like to start your plays with Regulator, so seeing a Gamma, a Regulator, and a start up in hand is just, that's like the optimal hand basically. So yeah. Next up, for the inner archetype spells, we got 2 startup. Special summons a Time Thief monster from your hand. You can also banish it from the graveyard to attach one of each card type, monster, trap, and spell from your graveyard to an XYZ Time Thief monster you control. That effect never comes up that much, to be honest, but the special summon effect is basically what you want to start your plays with. Seeing this with a Regulator in hand is just beautiful. Next, we have our rank up magics. We've got Soul Shade Force as well as the Phantom Knight's rank up magic force. Nothing needs to be said about that. This is literally there to get infinity, and Phantom Knight's rank up magic force is to go into a Dark Requiem XYZ Dragon, which was the MVP, to be honest. Next, for the power one-offs, we've got 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Upstart Goblin, 1 Called by the Grave, and 1 Harpy's Feathered Duster. Nothing needs to be said about those. Upstart Goblin for a 39 card deck. I am actually running 40, ladies and gents. And then next to the traps, we've got 1 Time Thief Retrograde. This is very, very, very important. I cannot overstate this enough. This stops your Dark Ruler no more, because the boards that you set up are kind of crazy, and being able to negate Dark Ruler no more, or even droplets, to be honest, is a nice feeling. So we've also got 1 Fogblade, 1 Shade Brigandine, as well as the 1 Solemn Strike. I do have the other Solemn Strike in the sideboard. I think I sided it out, and I can't remember what else I put in. But typically, ladies and gents, when you play in this deck, you play a lot of your plays from your deck, so you're special summoning a lot from your deck. So the cards that you actually initially draw, you draw your starters and probably a little bit of protection in the form of Gamma, and then the rest of the plays that you're making are either from your graveyard or from your deck, which makes the other 3 to 4 cards in your hand completely flexible options. So seeing a strike or 2 or even a Gamma Seal can definitely turn the tide in your favor. So I kind of like the way that the deck plays, to be honest. Next up, we are onto our extra deck. So we are running the double Time Thief Redoer and the 1 Perpetua. Redoer is probably my favorite XYZ monster, and not just because I played this over the weekend, just in general. It's got so much disruption. I mean, I played against one of my friends actually, is playing Paleos, and typically Paleos don't run a lot of monsters. They got a lot of traps, a lot of floodgates, and I was literally just eating all of his cards. Every standby phase I would attach one of his card of his deck to Winder, and I was taking Swap Frogs, Dupe Frogs, Ice Dragon Prisons, Solemn Strikes, Warnings, Infinite Impermanences. It was just absolutely crazy. And then on top of that, he's got his effects as well to spin back cards, draw cards, banish himself to the end phase. He's just super duper powerful, and Perpetua just basically feeds into Redoer. So definitely a power card right there. Next up, for some more of the engine, we've got 2 Raidraptor Force Tricks. This is kind of mandatory. You go into both of them off your plays. One to be able to go into your infinity, and the other one to extend. So you do want to see both of them, to be honest, and you will go through 2 in 1 turn. Also, we've got the Raiders Knight and the Ark Rebellion XYZ Dragon play. This is the reason this deck can go second. OTK for days. Especially if you summon it with an XYZ monster, which you probably will do in the form of Raiders Knight as a material. You can just blanket negate all the monsters on field. You do need to burn through a few of your opponent's negates, but that's probably easily enough done, to be honest. This just ends games, as you've seen in the replay. And what I will say, ladies and gents, if you haven't actually had a chance to see, I will link a iCard in the description of the locals. We're actually playing this deck, and there's a couple of live duels on it, so definitely go and check that out if you haven't seen it already. So next up, we've got one Evil Swarm Nightmare, one Dark Rebellion XYZ Dragon, and the MVP Dark Requiem XYZ Dragon. This just said no to a whole heap of combo decks, just negate, and it summons back some of your XYZ monsters, which is just fantastic. Evil Swarm Nightmare, this was actually in the side, because I've got a couple of XYZ monsters in the side, in the form of Bagooska as well. But I put him in mainly because there was a couple of zoos running around, and I wanted to be able to just book their normal summon, to be honest. So definitely a power card, Evil Swarm Nightmare, not once per turn, and very good disruption in that. We're also running the one Cyber Dragon Infinity, just to go off into our Associate Force plays. One Nightmare Phoenix, because I was actually scared of like Imperial Order, as well as is it Contact C, the one that special summons itself to your field, and you have to special use it to go into a link monster. Well, you have to use it as material to get it off the field. So yeah. We're also running the one Raidraptor Weistrix. This just special summons your Mimicry from deck, and it also gets you your Soul Shade Force. And this is the reason I could go into Infinity and just make a crazy board, basically. And typically what you're going to end on is a Redoer, an Infinity, and a Dark Requiem XYZ Dragon on your opponent's turn, as well as a Rusty Bardiche, which can be either a Fog Blade or even a rank up magic. And Rusty is definitely a power play. My opponents typically went after Rusty, to be honest, which was fine, because normally I had a bit of a board presence before I got to Rusty, but nevertheless, very strong card in this deck. And then finally, we have the one Psyframe Lord Omega. This is just to go into Gamma, just in case of Procket on my turn, which is something that happened quite a lot, might I add. And it's just a nice bit of removal. You can also recycle some of your cards, to be honest. So yeah. And that is it, ladies and gents. Not the most optimal a build, I'm gonna say. You could possibly put in a lot more hand traps or even extenders. Now there is a little bit of a fine balance that you need to strike with this deck, and being able to balance out the extenders with the hand traps, because you can tilt it a little bit towards one way. You don't need a lot to get going, but you do need a lot to keep going. And because it's a rank 4 toolbox type deck, there are a few extenders like Dinetherium that you could potentially put in, which I just didn't have access to at the time. Nevertheless, I managed to get top 6. It was a very good event, and I'm proud of myself. It's probably one of the highest ranking places I've actually ranked recently, so definitely an achievement. But anyway, ladies and gents, if you think there's any cards that I should have added or should have included, definitely get at me in that comment section below. And if you do like this content, you know what to do by now. Hit that like button, share, subscribe, all of that beautiful good stuff, and I would definitely see you guys on the next video. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.